Hello, lacrosse friends. Welcome once again to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse on Blue Squatch Productions. I'm Steven Stamp. I am with, as always, Adam Levy. And as always, in the background and popping up from time, hey, there he is, Greg Beecher from Blue Squatch. And we always give Greg credit for doing all the work in the background, but we have to give Charity some credit too. She is back there. You can't hear her, you can't see her, but she is making things happen as we go. And Adam, welcome back to the lacrosse world after you were in San Diego for the weekend, but not to watch lacrosse. What was going on?
Yeah, Nikki and I were part of our 5-year wedding anniversary month celebration. We're trying to scatter events. It was a nice dance party. We went to a little bit of a music festival thing just to let loose. No Preston, no other kids, no other responsibilities, just having fun. So it was a good time. Tried a Westburg recommended brunch spot, which had an incredibly long lineup, but it was very worth it and delicious. Morning Glory in San Diego in Little Italy. Go check it out. No free ads though, but there you go. There's your tease.
I saw the picture of the lineup for that place. Where were you in the lineup?
So we were towards the end of that. I think you can see Nikki for a split second, but they hadn't opened yet, and so once they started to trickle people in, it was about a 20-minute wait, which I will say is longer than I like to wait. I don't normally wait in lines, but this was worth it. But yeah, it was great to be back. But I know I missed some incredible games, Stamper, and I know you got to watch them all as they were happening. So take me through them.
Yeah, I mean, I did get to watch some games, and it was a lot of fun. I think the one that everyone was pretty stoked up for, of course, was Buffalo and Saskatchewan, and it didn't disappoint. There were some other really cool things happening. It was a really defensive weekend. I've written about this on IL Indoor that there are 5 games, 10 teams playing, 7 of them scored fewer than 10 goals, and Colorado won with 11 goals. So the only 2 teams that really scored a bunch more, Georgia had 15 and Rochester 14. Everyone else was down. And we're going to take a bit of an in-depth look at Buffalo and Saskatchewan because the defense was spectacular. And it's interesting. You see Derek Keenan post-game, and he was saying, yeah, I thought it'd be a higher scoring game because both teams are so good offensively. But I want to run through one shift, Adam, and show you and show everybody else. One of the reasons why this was happening, and it's good that you're wearing your green hoodie so you can blend in with the turf.
Yeah.
So I want to circle. Let's stop it right there. We already did. Way to go, Greg. I want to go through each player and what they do. And first of all, let's circle Bobby Kidd III. He's in the middle with the white shoes. Oh, there it is. It's on the right. Okay, so as we run, now that doesn't show up on the one that I see, on the big one, but we're working on that. But let's run through that and see exactly what's that?
Yeah, new technology here, everybody. Sorry,
okay,
we're working
no problem. It's a brand new thing, and we were very excited, but that's going to happen next week. But Bobby Kidd III, watch him. He's in the middle. He's got the bright white shoes on. And watch him. Dehoga Nanticoke is coming in. He's going to cover him, pass him off, and you'll see how he runs it. So let's just let it run. We're probably going to go back and forth a few times. There he's on Nanticoke, picks up Dane Smith. Here he's watching. Chris Cloutier is going to take this shot pretty quickly, pretty early in the shot clock. Bobby Kidd starts to take off. Hold it there for a second. So early in this game, Adam, Buffalo was getting every loose ball. They were winning every loose ball. They got so many offensive resets. It was kind of amazing that it was a tie game because Buffalo was dominating in the offensive zone on that. I believe that after the second commercial break, or in the second commercial break, Derek Keenan, Jimmy Quinlan, and Jeremy Levy probably all got together and said, get the loose balls, get after those loose balls, box your guys out. Because Bobby Kidd, you can see he's starting to take off. Watch what he does now. Go ahead and run it. He comes back and gets into the scrum for the loose ball. He is ready to go pick that ball up. Now he's going to take off. He's going to take this outlet pass. We'll run it back again. But I love the play there that Kidd goes in. They're fast. They will run. Obviously, Saskatchewan loves to transition. They knew, though, they had to change something in the defensive zone. So, Adam, I'm going to let you comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, what from what I did see, and thank goodness that there are NLL Plus extended highlights out there on NLLplus.com, which has been incredibly useful. Yeah, I mean, it was an incredibly gritty game, and I think that that's exactly, what you're pointing out here is that, normally guys, they would just move on up, but, that it does seem like there was an emphasis on trying to keep Buffalo away from having possession or even having any space to shoot. You saw Cloutier right there. Yes, it was a quick shot, but really no space for him to get a good opportunity off. And that was something that we saw throughout the night for Saskatchewan. And actually, I was looking into it. It was the first time since December 29th, 2023 that the Bandits have been held under 10 goals in a game. So that speaks to how successful Saskatchewan was.
When was that game in San Diego? I guess that was the year before in San Diego when Buffalo won 7-6 in overtime on the Priolo goal.
This was it was 9-8 loss to Georgia.
Okay, so that's one in San Diego was the year before, right? Okay,
yeah.
Okay, so I love the kid play there. Let's take a look at. Let's go with Graham Hossick, just coming into the restraining line. He's a little behind DeHogan Anticum, number 94 for Saskatchewan. We'll run the play again.
Hossick.
What did I say?
Graham.
Oh, yeah, Matt Hossick, who right now may be the better Hossick this year. I don't know. Yeah, okay, he's going to get on Ian McKay. Watch what he does. The shot is taken.
Yep.
Look at his positioning. Perfect position, and watch what he does. He's going to double over Ian McKay. Nothing excessive. Go ahead and run it. He keeps McKay away from getting that ball. I think that's absolutely critical to this play, that he didn't worry about the ball. He worried about the man first.
And then also what's important is that, so often coaches will say to their defense, they say, don't let guys get in the middle of the floor. And you're seeing that they're not only not allowing guys to get middle of the floor, but they're swarming on guys when they even get close. So again, perfect execution by the swarm there, by the rush there. And I think that, again, that exemplified how tenacious they were all night.
Yeah. Let's take a look at Jake Boudreau. We're not going to bother looking at Adam J. He is down here. I'm pointing with my finger, but you all can't really see that. He is the furthest right defender on the screen for Saskatchewan. He's fine. He just he's not central to this play because it's kind of away from him. He does get up on the shot. We'll take a quick look at him. He's the one who's actually going to jump right here on Cloutier. So he's doing his part here, getting out, sliding off of McKay, getting on Cloutier, contesting this shot, and then he's just going to kind of stay out to his space. Again, not taking off too early, but he does a nice job here getting on Cloutier, and then he's just staying between Cloutier and the ball. So he does a nice job. Here he is. He's right in there, ready to be part of it. Doesn't wind up being needed to be part of it. Yeah. But again, there's 5 defenders in a tight little circle.
Yeah. And again, just looking at that play, if you go back to the shot, you can see the massive perimeter that Chiliano has in front of him, that is definitely allowing him to have a better opportunity to see the ball because there's just no one cramming in front of him, which I think is incredibly beneficial. I mean, look at the space in front of the crease right there. And then even if you roll it a couple seconds, like it's still so open in front.
Yeah. The one thing in Buffalo, I feel like it was a bit of a force maybe by Cloutier, but still, I mean, he saw something he liked. Now, let's run it back again, and this time we're going to take a look at Jake Boudreau, who is right there just inside the restraining line by the face-off dot, over covering Dane Smith along the boards. And we're going to watch what Boudreau does on this play. He's going to pick up Smith as we run it, and then he'll pass him off. Grabs DeHogan Antikook, immediately gets his hand on DeHogan's arm, is right there, and establishes pretty good position on him. As it keeps rolling, he's going to just cover an Antikook, not ball watching, but being aware. You can see, and he's aware it's happening, and boom, he is right back. That shot comes out. He is headed. He's between his man and the net, the ball. Then he gets between Kyle Buchanan and just takes away, and then he's going to slide down past Chiliano to provide an outlet. But again, just he's not the most involved in the play because of the way the play works out, but he is there in his position doing exactly what he needs to do, not trying to do too much, doing his thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great example, Stamper, that you picked here of, how things worked out all night. But, I also feel like we got to give credit, and I know that we are praising Saskatchewan, but obviously the Buffalo Bandits defense, outside of Zach Mans, I think I had looked it up, and tweeted it out, 3 of 62 on all total shots on the night, which is just incredible. And I think that what's incredible about this Bandits team, and they're proving it now when the going gets tough against these tough opponents, and that includes San Diego, is that they'll win in whatever way they have to, whether that's scoring a bunch of goals or finding the loose balls, getting gritty opportunities. They're really just capitalizing on every opportunity they have, which is why they're 9-1, and only the 7th team, Stamper, in NLL history to have a 9-1 or better start. So
wow, that's pretty good. We've got one more defender to go through, so let's do that.
I will just add that the 6 teams before that were 9-1 or better never won. None of them won the NLL championship. So
that's a great nugget. I love that Levi nugget. So we're going to watch one more guy, Connor McClelland. And where is he? He is right there in the middle. He is on, that's not Buchanan, it's left. It's Clay Scanlon that he would be on. So 13, McClelland, white shoes, just above the crease. There he is. He sees Scanlon go behind the net. He's going to follow him, keep an eye on him. He's looking out, sees where everyone is, sees how the play is developing, sees the shot, and takes a look for his man. There, he's got his man. The rebound comes out, and watch McClelland. This is a really key piece. He almost gets beat to it here by the man coming out from behind the net. And Scanlon does get down after this ball, but McClelland crashes down, shoves Scanlon, and that allows this ball to kind of roll into Frank Giuliano as they get after it. It's hard to see the ball and how it comes out of there, but McClelland, the 5th and final piece, and one of the key pieces here, is he just recovers from being lost for a half a step for half a second, crashes in a hurry.
Yeah, and there's go ahead,
I was just gonna say, the one thing I noticed too is that cross check really is like perfectly under the bottom of the stick, just picking it up. I didn't notice this till like the 5th time I was watching this highlight, but he really does get right under that hand. And if I've got a way bigger screen that I'm watching it on, but he would have had that loose ball if it wasn't for him coming and getting under the stick with that cross check. Not going for the huge hit, but just making sure it was a perfectly placed cross check. I just noticed that. Sorry.
Yeah. And Hossack, and the other thing, Hossack and McClelland both lay those cross checks on the Buffalo players, McKay and Scanlon respectively, but they are down below the number, not down on the hip, but below the numbers or at the bottom of the numbers. They're not getting up high. They do kind of push them over, but not enough to draw a penalty, draw some kind of a loose ball push, which is key, because obviously all this is for naught if you just hand the ball back over. And one of the things, I was thinking as we're watching all this, what a great play, what a great shift for Saskatchewan. The whole game was like this. Saskatchewan played great, and as Adam pointed out, Buffalo still beat them 9-7 because Buffalo's defense is doing equally terrific things. I just thought this shift was so great to watch. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Is this a preview of the finals, do you think? That's my prediction.
Right. It could be. I have to say that Halifax, right now, the way that they're looking, I would say the next most complete team behind these two, right up there with them, I think, really. And then, I would say San Diego could be thrown in there, but I'm a little less sold on them than Halifax. And then you can't not talk about Georgia making a sneaky run either.
Honestly, I feel like it's the most likely scenario is these two teams in the final at this point. When you start looking at who's playing well, we've got a third of the season still to go, and we've seen teams can get hot, can get cold. I think somebody's going to go on a heater down the stretch. It could be, I'll throw a dark horse out, Vancouver. They're the only team not in a playoff position right now that has a positive goal differential. I think Vancouver could make some noise. They might not. There's so many teams in the mix there. Rochester is playing well. If Rylan Hartley keeps playing great, they are a bit of an underappreciated team, which is foreshadowing for the next section when we look at underappreciated players. But I think kind of anybody in that middle of the group has the potential. Yeah. I do like Georgia and their chance to come and do something. Halifax, obviously. I almost feel like Halifax, are they peaking too soon? You never know. You want to keep winning games.
Fair point.
Yeah. So I don't know. Are Buffalo and Saskatchewan peaking too soon? I don't know. I think there's a lot of opportunity, but if Buffalo's not in the final, we'll all be pretty surprised. But bear in mind, a year ago, Buffalo that won the championship and looked so awesome was in overtime in the first round, the quarterfinals with Georgia, and was, a couple inches away from not even getting to the semis.
Yeah, exactly. And it is going to be interesting, that fight for those home playoff games in the first round, because, when you look at scheduling, and you mentioned Rochester, they have the easiest schedule, at least as it stands now going forward, compared to really any of the other playoff contenders or current playoff teams. And that's going to benefit them if they can really continue this beginning of a hot stretch that they're on.
Yeah. I mean, we haven't even mentioned Colorado, who's
Yep.
been in 2 of the last 3 championship series and
Right.
are looking pretty good. They've got Dylan Ward, they've got Ryan Lee,
Yep.
seems to be back at full. I mean, it's been good. And we should probably stop looking at that screen because I think it's probably pretty ugly when we get to the 1 and 4. Holy cow. Let's get rid of that screen. And I think that's probably the first section. Get rid of it. Are you not listening to me? Thank you. Come on. It's not time for humiliate the host yet. Anything else you want to talk about over the past weekend, Adam, before we move on to our underappreciated players?
I was really excited. Well, yes, I actually do. I was hoping that Nick Rose was going to have a better kind of standout breakout game in his debut with the Calgary Roughnecks. It's unfortunate that he came out with a loss. Still played well, but it would have been nice. And I believe I've said, as a writer, and Stamper, the story is always fun, and I was hoping that would kind of be the start of something special in Calgary, and I think that they're still going to be doing well in this final third here. But I wish that we had really seen a standout performance from Nick.
And that's a team, the other team that we didn't mention. I was going to mention them. I'm like, well, they lost to Colorado, but they've got Nick Rose, they've got Jesse King and Curtis Dixon and Dane Dobie and all the guys up front. Tyler Pace. The defense, I think, is looking good now. They lost Robert Hudson. They bring in Tyler Hendricks. We'll see how that impacts them. But with the trade, but the one thing about that game I thought was I thought Nick Rose played his game. I thought he played fine, but Colorado was shooting really, really well. Like you look at 5 or 6 of those goals were just perfect placement.
Which is what you expect from them.
Yeah, it happens, right? I mean, so and how much of that one did you get to see? Given your anniversary extravaganza?
Not very much. I did bring my computer on the trip, and then I was like, I'm not actually going to do a lot of work. So it was been some catch up over the last couple days, but it's I am very excited over the next few days. Although I have some very exciting pieces coming out on Inside Lacrosse this week that I'm knee deep in, but finding time to squeeze in those games ahead of this exciting weekend coming up, which we'll be previewing and making our picks for at the end of the show.
Yeah, I'm Team Nicky on this one. I think it was the best thing you could have done was go out. Don't worry about watching lacrosse for one weekend. Yeah. Go out and enjoy the festival and the San Diego sunshine. I assume it was sunny. It's pretty much always sunny, right?
It was surprisingly not as sunny and not as hot as I was thinking. It was only about 15, 16 Celsius, 60 Fahrenheit. Somewhere around there. I know my numbers might be a little bit off, but it was, and then some rain actually towards the end on Sunday, clouds in the morning, lots of wind. So wasn't the San Diego weather I was expecting, but that didn't put a damper on our time.
Yeah, it was still, I mean, it's getting above 0 here, but it was still mostly below 0 Celsius, and we still got a bunch of snow, and then we had rain, and it was all like melting, and it's moving from winter into muck season. So you're not getting a lot of sympathy on the 60-degree temperatures out there.
Yeah,
but I'm glad you enjoyed the festival. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to look at 5 underappreciated players. We're going to look at more than 5, but we're going to choose our 5 underappreciated players in the National Lacrosse League this season. This is Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. Adam Levy, Steven Stamp, and Greg Beecher and Blue Squatch Productions in the background.
Welcome back to Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. I am Adam Levy, Steven Stamp, Greg Beecher behind the scenes. Very excited to have you for this section of the program. We're going to be talking about some guys which, need a little bit more love, Stamper. They've been playing quite well. And sometimes, the big names, the big stars, they get all the hype. But the NLL is amazing because of all the guys that are on every team. So let's break down who are some of our most underappreciated players so far this season. Do you want to kick things off with your first selection?
Sure. We're gonna have 5 guys. We're gonna wind up with. Adam and I each have 2 that we've put in as locks, and then we're gonna debate for the final spot. We each are putting 1 player forward, or for those of us who couldn't quite make up our minds, 2 players forward for the final grouping. But yeah, my first guy is Warren Jeffrey. There's a little preview there for some of the guys that were under consideration. And Warren Jeffrey, look at his stats there. He's got 12 caused turnovers, not super high in the ranks. He's like in the top 20, 25 or something. Only 1 goal, 7 assists, which is actually pretty good for him. He's not really big on running the ball, right? But we're going to take a look at some video. This is from week 11, and thank you to Greg and Charity, Charity mostly, for getting this one ready to take a look at, because I wanted to talk about this in the other show, and I just forgot to get on it. So we're going to take a look at this, and it's the final 30 seconds of Colorado's week 11 game against Georgia. They just pulled ahead by a goal. They're up by 1 goal right down the stretch here. We'll see it in a sec. And the thing, Warren Jeffrey, I think had a fantastic game in week 11. And this final shift kind of epitomizes what was going on with him. And the thing is, sorry, what happened? Okay, can I share my screen? Okay, if I share my screen, I actually have it on my player as well. So, where's screen sharing? Right there. Yeah.
We'll get through her, and then I'll grab your screen source.
Okay, here we go. Okay, you got it?
All right.
And if I just hit play.
Hang on, give me 1 second to grab it.
No problem. So, yeah, it's a 13-12 game. This was a fantastic back and forth game. Colorado, I think it was it Eli McLaughlin got the late goal, or I can't remember. It was a backdoor. Net wound up being pretty open because they moved the ball around really well. And we come down. Georgia's got possession. After they won a faceoff, Jeremy Thompson wins the faceoff after that goal. They call timeout, and they set up for this play on the ensuing play. And I think Warren Jeffrey this kind of encapsulates what Warren Jeffrey does. He is so tough, so smart, tough. In junior, he was a guy who he was a tough guy. He kind of banged bodies around, but he took a lot of penalties, I thought, in junior, and he had to. That doesn't always bode well when you're going to the pros. You got to have the responsibility and the discipline. And I think he's done such a great job of maintaining his team toughness, but not taking a ton of penalties. How are we doing? Can I hit play? Greg, are you still with us? You might be muted.
Got it. Yeah, as soon as you hit play, it'll start playing.
Okay, good. That's
Sorry.
what I just wanted to make sure.
I mean, we can actually see him from where we're standing. He is not going to go back.
I'm going to take the volume off. And here we go. Georgia comes in. Warren Jeffrey with the black socks there, kind of hunched over a little bit. He's on the far side. He's watching, comes up, gets his stick on this pass, knocks it down. And again, he's in the top 10 in the league in block shots, but he's always blocking his body. Look at that. And I'm going to just go back 10 seconds. And he blocks this one. He drops the stick down. First knocks that pass down. Watch this block shot right here. Gets the stick down by his side. That's unbelievable. Like, that play, to me, is why Warren Jeffrey, I'm going to stop sharing. And that, to me, is why Warren Jeffrey is one of the underappreciated players, because he's not out there soaking shots with his body the way that they all sometimes you hear people talk about. He's getting a stick on it. I just absolutely loved what he did in that situation. Sorry to create the infinite the internet thing. So this is on me. I was very late getting this to Greg and Charity. Like, we're on the phone, and I was like, "Could we do this video?" So, but it was great to. Thanks, guys, for adjusting and letting me get that up there. But Warren Jeffrey, you can see 13 block shots. I believe that's tied for 10th in the league. I've seen, I'm sure, at least 3 of them that he's done with his stick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys that, I think, like you greatly pointed out, like he'll make the smart plays. He'll be tough. Never gets those standout highlight plays or the big hits or anything like that. But we do have to remember that he was the 6th overall pick in the 2019 NLL entry draft, and Pat Coyle was very excited to pick him up. It's a great kind of Pat Coyle defensive pick there for him, and he has been standing out.
I remember talking to Pat Coyle a couple of years ago when I thought I thought he was going to be good coming in, and I thought he was maybe a top 5 defender in the league for stretches. And I called Pat Coyle and said, "Hey, I just got to check with you. Like, am I missing something, or is Warren Jeffrey like one of the best defenders in the league, and people just aren't talking about it?" He's like, "Oh yeah, no, he's really good."
Yeah.
So yeah, he's my first guy.
Yeah, and it's a lot of those guys with Colorado. It's the same with Robert Hope. Like, he gets more numbers and stuff like that. But these guys, they're not going to get the big hits. They're not going to do things that you're going to be like, "Oh my God, that guy, scares the bejesus out of me," or however you want to say it.
I think Warren Jeffrey does scare the bejesus out of people.
Yeah, he is a big guy. That is fair. 6'3", 210. So,
and Jordan Gillis is in that conversation as well, right? And he was sensational at the Team Canada trials for the Worlds last year, and was an alternate on that team.
Yeah. And so for me, the one of the guys that I want to point out first, I'm going to say Justin Inacio for me. He has been, obviously Calgary has been a great story so far this season. It's been great to see their improvement. But for Justin Inacio, I mean, first of all, first in faceoff wins this season, winning at 63%, and only his second year. Last year, he only played 8 games, I believe it was, and really he's improved in all fronts. And the fact that he's grabbing as many loose balls as he is off those draws as well. You see a lot of guys, they'll be at the dot, and then what they'll do is that the guys from the wings or other people come in and they'll pick up the loose balls. But the fact that he's getting in there, grinding, picking him up, 4th most loose balls in the league right now. He's also adding the caused turnovers, which has been really good to see. So, I think that when it comes to, whether faceoffs matter or not, with the improvement of Curtis Dixon and Dane Doby and the rest of that offense, Jesse King, who you see on this list as well, as a great facilitator. And I know that Nick Rose is going to be happy that, when you're getting the possession and the ball away from you and giving you time to set up and not always be on your back foot or feeling the pressure after you've let in a goal or even you've scored, that's hugely beneficial to confidence and a big thing. So Justin Inacio, I know I've heard from a bunch of Calgary Roughnecks players that they think that he's been doing great. I even think that Christian Del Bianco put out a tweet about how Justin Inacio needs more love. So I think that he's a guy that hasn't been talked about, and is mainly also because there's been so many of these pop-up face-off guys who have had improved seasons, but he is one of them, and I feel like he has not been getting the love that he deserves.
And it's interesting because it's funny, I saw him at the top of your list, and I thought, interesting. And maybe it's just for me because I called Calgary at Ottawa for the NLL Plus a few weeks ago, and so we were looking at Inacio, and we were kind of he was really coming to the fore. So he was a guy that we were talking about, and we felt like, okay, this is a key guy for them. And I remember seeing him playing for Brooklyn and MSL, and thinking, yeah, this kid's gonna be good. We did mess up his name on the broadcast. I don't know if I brought that up. I may have. We got it from the wrong source. And I actually had to message Justin and say, okay, I've got to double check this. He said, yeah, no, it's not Inacio, it's Inacio. And I was like, oh, sorry, man. He's like, it's okay, next time. But he's also a good guy. But yeah, it's funny because I thought, oh, he seems to be getting a lot of credit. But you're probably right that it was more my focus. I think we all have our own guys that we don't hear appreciated elsewhere. And that's why we, you've got him on your list. Whereas for me, he was a bit more in the spotlight. The next guy is the guy that you've gotten to see. He's going to be my addition, that you've gotten to see in person. at least once or twice, right? And he's a guy, Phil Caputo, who's kind of bounced around a bit was in Panther City. I remember a long time executive in the league telling me this guy might be, this is a couple of years ago, this guy might be the most productive or the most important player for a team on an offensive thing, because he did so much for Panther City. And he's not a huge scorer. He's got 21 points, right? 14 goals in 11 games. But Uncle Phil is really critical to things that his teams do. And he just, you see Mitch Jones and Joe Rositeris, they're obviously getting plenty of attention. Brennan O'Neill is going to draw his own attention. Yeah. But, Sam LeClaire, I think, has been really good for them. All these guys that have played well. But Phil Caputo just adds an element to that team or to whatever team he's on that everyone is looking for.
Yeah, and Phil is one of those guys that, I spoke to him before the season and in training camp, and he was just, whatever the team needs me to do, whatever role they want me to fill, that's what I'm going to do. And you see that. And he's, he is willing to sacrifice the body and set tough picks as well. He's definitely one of the guys that, you mentioned the three right there. And with now that, Brennan seems to be getting a bigger role on offense, it'll be interesting again to see how Phil adjusts to that when they play their first game this weekend with the new defense and it'll be, and without Holden Catoni as well, how that changes things for Phil Caputo. So, it might even open up more opportunities for him.
It might. And I think as you talk about that, I'm thinking, what, next week it's going to be just after the trade deadline when we do the show. We should go back and talk about all the trades, because as you're talking about Brendan O'Neill getting more a bigger role, and I know people have been saying that. Like, I've seen people say, trading Catoni is great because it gives O'Neill more of a role. Holden Catoni is one of the best shooters in lacrosse. I don't love having to give him up, but I know they're excited to bring Shane Simpson in. But we're going to talk about all that kind of stuff next week. Deal, everyone?
Yeah, and man, Monday is going to be a lot of fun.
It is Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an exciting trade deadline. There's been some rumors. Obviously, Toronto has been making their way, but we don't want to talk too much about that. We'll wait for that.
Who else have you got?
For me, I had Holden Garland on there. I feel like, one of the reasons I wanted to bring up him was because I believe we had mentioned him maybe the first couple weeks of this show. Then we kind of transitioned to Jake Boudreau and the transition guys, the Mike Messengers. And then on defense, we started talking about Matt Hossack a lot and talking about him as a potential defensive player of the year. But Holden is having a very good season and one of the best seasons he's had, in my opinion, since 21-22, right out of that COVID season. He's already tied both his block shots and caused turnovers from last year, and he's still got 6 games left. He's on pace pretty much for career highs in both caused turnovers and also block shots. But I think one of the things that stands out to me a lot is it's the gritty and toughness that he plays with. Like, if you watch some of his highlights, I mean, he is a suffocating defender. He's just giving you those extra hits, those extra checks, making you kind of fight for every inch that you want to have. He's really, embodies that kind of tough Derek Keenan kind of no nonsense defense that they've really built there. And I think that because we've been talking about so much of those other guys, I feel like he is a guy that I just wanted to reinsert into the conversation, because the Saskatchewan defense is, according to the numbers and really, again, what we saw against Buffalo, one of the top defenses in the league, including, by the way, a game high 4 caused turnovers against Buffalo this past weekend. So shout out to Holden for his continued improvement and effort.
He was on my list to consider when we were thinking about doing 5 each, and then we thought, no, that's going to take forever, and it makes more sense. Let's have 5 guys. We'll whittle it down. He was on my list because I think, like you said, Boudreau, probably transition player of the year right now. All credit to Owen Grant, but they're in, the other guys, but I think, he's probably the guy. You've got Hossack, maybe defensive player of the year. All these guys, McClellan is still really good. Everyone, Bobby Kidd comes back. And I think
Adam J too,
I love that trade for them. Like, he's part of that Mark Matthews trade, right? Dak Mans and Adam J, and maybe a pick as well. I agree. Totally agree.
Yeah.
So the something that we've already talked about, Jordan Gillis. So we have 4 of our 5. This is our top 5 underappreciated players. We've talked about Jordan Gillis, one of those Colorado guys. Mike Byrne and Jesse King. I know Greg threw those in. I think Jesse King. We talked about it. It was before we were on air, right? About you, and you were saying because Dobie and Dixon, or Greg was saying Dobie and Dixon get so much attention.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see King on an underappreciated list because to me, everyone knows he's one of the best players in the game.
Yeah, I mean he is one of those elite guys, and what we were talking about, and I think what everyone knows is that Jesse is just going to go and do his business. He does everything behind the scenes. He doesn't want the spotlight. He's just going to show what he can do every week on the floor, and really one of the top facilitators in this league, and it's been amazing to see that kind of coming together again with him, Dixon, and Dobie, because that has worked so well in the past. So very excited to see that kind of connection happen again. But yeah, I think that Jesse is one of those top players in this league. I mean, 69 points at this point is up there. So he is one of the best.
So he's gotten lots of appreciation from us for maybe or maybe not being underappreciated. Mike Byrne, for sure, is an underappreciated guy. They love him in Albany. Other guys get more attention there. Colton Watkinson, the rookies, Will Johansson and Zach Masson, Nick Tchaikovsky, who is on Team Canada and is fantastic. I think Byrne, I was a guy when his first couple of years in the league, I remember thinking, he seems to me like a marginal roster guy. Like there are other guys that maybe I'd be thinking, but they knew him from his days in the beaches where Glenn Clark coached. Mike McKay, the video coach, is a coach there. And Clem Durazio has strong beaches connections. He'd been there. So they knew him and they've been proved right because he is so steady for Albany.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, another reason why he gets overlooked, at least especially this season, is with the Albany record and how things defensively haven't shaped up. But I think that, think about the responsibilities that he's taken on because some of those key guys, Nishimura and Watkinson and everyone have been out, that puts so much pressure on everyone else.
I don't think if I didn't watch every Albany game live, I would even notice. But as somebody who's there in person watching everyone, he does so much of the little things that don't always make the stat sheets. It's not just the cause turnovers. Like you said, when everybody was hurt, he really stepped up, was directing traffic. There was so much of that is what I picked up is he was really my most underappreciated guy. And then Lanchberry, when we get into him, that's somebody I'm really glad.
Not yet.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I'm really glad that you pointed him out to us because that put him on my radar. And then last week, as I was watching them annihilate the Firewolves, that kind of, it goes to show.
Right. Bittersweet for you there. Adam, I'm going to let you present. So we've got our 4 guys. As we said, we're going to present our candidates for the 5th player on the list. And you're going Georgia for this one. And go ahead.
I am. So I'm trying to find a little bit of a loophole in the way that we're doing things by giving a pair on defense here, Mike Manley and John Rannigan. Not only you see the numbers there from the amount of block shots for Mike Manley, the caused turnovers, and the block shots from Rannigan, but for me, what it is that Adam Wiedemann has been out now for a handful of games. TJ Comicio missed a couple. And each of those guys, Rannigan and Manley, have had to step up and fill in for those key defensive pieces that have been out for Georgia. And Georgia, especially of late, has been looking very, very good in defensively. And Brett Dobson has been playing better. Mm-hmm. But we also have to say that a goalie is sometimes only as good as the defense in front of him. And so, yeah. And so, when you look at how Georgia has been playing of late, I think that those guys definitely haven't been mentioned enough. And because also those numbers, they're not jumping off the page, but they're very solid. But again, they do so much more than that as well. So, I think that credit is due for guys because, unexpected injuries are always going to happen. How teams face adversity is really important. And Georgia has been doing that really well.
I see your point. I totally think, yeah, I can see how they'd be.
Disagree.
I do respectfully disagree. I think I like John Rannigan's movement. I think he's moving better than he has been. Like the last year or so, he's been moving better than he was before when he had some injuries and things. He's looking fast again and dangerous. Mike Manley is he's so tough. He's so scary. Like he's one of those guys who think he's gonna make you think twice about going to the middle. So I like that. But I shall present for your consideration for the fifth player, Ryan Lanchbury. And you might think, Ryan Lanchbury. Yeah, I think he's pretty good. He's fifth in the league in scoring.
Mm-hmm.
He is second in the league in assists.
Yeah.
And he is not mentioned with all these other players. And I've been obviously beating this drum for a little bit, but I don't get why he doesn't get more attention. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. You can say, well, yeah, Rochester, they've played a game or two games more than the teams for which everyone else in the top 20 scorers plays, except of course Connor Fields, his teammate. But 18 of the 20 top scorers in the league have played either 11 or 12 games. Rochester's played 13, right? But look at points per game. Ryan Lanchbury with 6.1 points per game, 7th in the league. Yeah. So he's doing it even on a per game basis, even without those. The 6 people ahead of him in points per game. These are going to be pretty familiar names: Dane Smith, Josh Byrne, Mitch Jones, Joe Resetarits, Connor Fields, Curtis Dixon. Mm-hmm. Those are stars, megastars in this league. Lanchbury is right there with them, and he's not getting a whole lot of attention. Every one of those players, those 6 players, has at least a silver medal from a World Lacrosse Championship, either box or field. Most of them have a gold. Some of them have multiple golds. Some of them have maybe 3 gold medals. I'm trying to think if Dane Smith was on the 14 Canada team, maybe not. But, these guys have multiple medals at Worlds and are stars in the league. Ryan Lanchbury right there with them in terms of effectiveness. His passing is fantastic. He's a underappreciated shooter, I think, as well. He's a very good shooter. And I would say he has to be the 5th guy. I don't know how we're going to decide this, actually, but if one of us would like to capitulate and recognize that the other's argument was stronger, we could do it that way.
I think the only fair choice is me as the outsider picks, and Lanchbury obviously wins because I think I'm just joking. I'll let you guys figure it out. But if you guys do tie, I would say my vote for Lanchbury, so we could just go ahead, Charity, and clear those swarm guys because, I think we could all agree it's got to be him, right?
Yeah, and I would expect nothing less for an offensive guy to get the credit over the defensive guys again. But, the defensive guys, they're used to it. They can live with that. But I will say that, I think that for me, really, I think it's a great pick. And I think there are 2 reasons I think that he's overlooked, Lanchbury. One, and you even look at the numbers, but you look at the role that he plays, he's definitely scoring more this season, which is great to see. And I think that that's another reason why he's underappreciated. But he does play a very similar role, a Jesse King-esque role in Rochester. So giving opportunities for Connor Fields and Ryan Smith. And so, that as we had Jesse King on our list, it's kind of a similar for Ryan. But then I would also say from a personal standpoint, maybe one of the reasons I didn't have them is I talked to the Rochester Mike Hazen and that coaching staff all the time, and he comes up in conversation all the time. So like what we were saying, about Jesse King, for me, Rochester is like, well, they always mention Ryan Lanchbury. And so, I think that that's why he wasn't my pick, but I feel like it's hard to have this kind of list and not have him on there.
Yeah, that's a great point. Again, the perspective is so much. Context is important. And I am just going to push back against the shade that you threw of the offensive guys getting the attention. I spent the whole first section talking about Saskatchewan's defense, and then this section I had the video queued up for Warren Jeffrey. So I'm not
pointing the finger at you, Stamper. I think we all know that the offensive guys in main media, and that goes for any sport, I feel, is the defensive guys always, come second, which is fine. But, I mean, that's a great group of guys. I mean, if you had all those guys on your team, then you'd be very happy.
Yeah, you could, go to the old days and run a two-way game. I mean, Jeffrey doesn't run a ton, but he could play at both ends. Yeah. Lanchbury, I haven't seen play a ton of defense, but one of the things when in his draft here, I remember watching him, some of the plays he made and thinking, wow, like there was one play, he was on the power play when Burlington was in Peterborough, and it was late in the game. Burlington was up by a bunch. It was not in question. And there is a play where there's a shot, ball bounces out, and it's heading out towards the top of the offensive zone. And it's literally in the last minute or two of this game, and Burlington's up by about 7.
Mhm.
And if Peterborough gets the ball, there is virtually no damage that's going to happen. He sprinted a few steps, dove to reach out and knock the ball back where one of his teammates could pick it up in a part of a game that really didn't mean a whole lot at that point. But there's no part of a game that doesn't mean a lot to Ryan Lashbrook. And
Right.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have it.
What a
Yeah.
list.
5 underappreciated players. And, we'd love for you guys to share, everyone watching, share with us players that you think are underappreciated, because there's a ton of them. One of my favorite sections at the end of the year in our voting is the unsung hero. And there's always a bunch of people get it. We're going to wrap this up and come back to make our predictions for Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. We'll be back with Humiliate the Hosts on Blue Squatch Productions. Welcome back to ITWOBL. We are inside the world of box lacrosse with the final segment for this week, Humiliate the Hosts. And Adam Levy, you were less humiliated this past weekend because you went 2 and 3 in your picks, and I went 1 and 4, which is atrocious. But I thought I was going to have a bounce back. Like the week before, I went 0 and 3 on Friday night, but then I got everything on Saturday, every single game. But this week, it just, I don't even know what happened. I don't know what to blame. There's no excuses. I just did not pick the right winners. So
I think that we've both been getting a little bit overthinking it a little bit. We're saying, well, I think that it's due for this, and I expect this to happen. I think that sometimes we just have to be like, okay, I think that this is my gut. This is how I'm feeling. Like this makes sense. And so I'm going to start things off with that first game, Toronto and Halifax, and I'm just going to say Halifax. I feel like this is a pretty simple pick with the way that Jamie Dowick has shipped away a lot of his players, and especially the way that Halifax offense in transition is looking right now. When you don't have Mitch DeSnew and Chris Corbeil there, and then not to have Nick Rose in net anymore. I would be absolutely shocked if Halifax does not win.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd be shocked if they didn't win, but I definitely think Halifax is like, you never know. Troy Holochuk's a good goalie, but boy, he's jumping in after not playing a lot the last couple of years. It's a lot, and without, like you said, without Disney, without Corbeil, without all these guys, it's tough to figure Halifax doesn't win this the way they've been playing. I'll go with them.
Yeah, I mean that Halifax team, they're running up and down. I mean Tarasenko and Withers and Clark Peterson stepping up his game. I mean they're just going to exhaust that Toronto defense, I imagine.
Yeah, we talked. It came up to the transition player of the year briefly earlier, and I didn't mention Ryan Tarasenko, which is kind of negligent because he's been astonishing lately. Although he wouldn't get my vote because I don't think he doesn't have the cost turnovers. He doesn't have as much on the defensive side, I think, as Boudreau's been showing and Owen Grant, but he's got to be in that conversation. But I've got Halifax for sure.
Yeah.
So I will start the next one, Rochester at Las Vegas. And interesting because Vegas has Holden Cattoni now. And with him in the lineup the first game, they scored 5 goals. So how much did it help? Well, he had 2 goals and 1 assist in that game. So he was obviously a big part of it. I think they're going to score more than 5 this week. Bold prediction, I know. But I'm going to go with Rochester, though, for this game. I think Rochester's playing well. Hartley's looked terrific. I think, Matt Gilray could have been an underappreciated player because he's, again, all the themes coming up. He is also in the transition player of the year discussion. So I've got Rochester.
Yeah, I've got Rochester as well. It has been nice, as I've mentioned on this show, and I'm always going to give coach and GM Sean Williams credit. The moves that he's making here is trying to make this team better. With Holden, there is this kind of outstanding issue with the work that he does, out east, how that can affect his travel. How available is he going to be? Is he going to be available all the time? I think he's an incredible addition to that offense. Hammer Jackson, in that first game was quite good. And so nice that they're building pieces, and hopefully they can continue to build for the future. But Rochester really looks great right now. One of the top teams, definitely a playoff looking team right now. And I think they keep rolling.
Before we roll on to the next pick, I'm going to be the annoying pronunciation guy again and point out it's Tyrell Hammer Jackson, not Hammer Jackson. I know everyone calls him Hammer. It's his nickname. It seems perfect for him, but it is Hammer Jackson. I remember checking with him on that one. So,
and it also is missing the double M that would make it Hammer. So
exactly, it's 1 M. So
right.
Yeah. So you get to pick first for Vancouver, San Diego.
I mean, I expect this to be arguably a contender for game of the week. A couple others there that I'm seeing that could fight for that as well. But, it feels like Vancouver, they've been so quiet. We haven't really been talking a lot about them. We haven't really been seeing them as much, having great breakout games. Oh, man,
I'm sorry, but one of my favorite parts is watching our pick graphics drifting back and forth. It's like a probability scale of what when they were saying that. Anyway, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Man, I'm gonna say San Diego on this one. That's a tough one. This one's a toss up for me, but I'm just gonna say San Diego. I think it's gonna be a really good game. Very excited for what to expect there, but San Diego Pechanga has been having some great crowds. They're going to want to bounce back. Zach Courier will be back in the lineup, I presume. Obviously, his wife had their child the other week, so he'll be back in the lineup. I don't know what is the latest you've heard on Ryan Benesh.
I haven't actually heard, so I'm curious whether Courier stays up front because I'm not sure how long Benesh is going to be, and I think that's an interesting factor. I think, my goodness, so a bunch of people having babies lately. It feels like, Frank Chiliano, there've been others. I got a text from Roger Courier, Zach and Josh's dad. He's our realtor and a friend of ours, and he sent me a text with a picture of the baby. I was just like, holy cow, that's a perfect baby.
Yeah.
I mean, babies are cute, right? But I think, again, another bold take. But it's just so cool to see for those guys. And I am going to rain on that parade a little bit. I think because I think I'm going to go Vancouver just because I feel like they've got a big game coming. I think they're going to kind of put everything together. I think Aiden Walsh continues to play well. I feel like they've got something, and Kurt Malosky keeps battling. What keeps them battling, and I just feel like they've got a game they're going to put together and play really well.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's been such a rough stretch for them. I mean, their 2 wins are against the Black Bears, who have not been as advertised, and then against the Desert Dogs, who again have not been as advertised. And other than that, if you look at their last what is it? Their last 7 games, they're 5-2. It really feels like things just haven't been working the way that we all expect them to. But anytime you have a team coached by Kurt Malosky, one of the great minds in this league, who, by the way, also, if we look back at that 2019 Calgary Roughnecks team when they had started slow and then had a hot stretch down the very end and then into the postseason to end up winning the NLL Cup. He's shown that he can do that. He can get his team ready for the moment. So it would not surprise me in the least if Vancouver, and also, by the way, these teams do not like each other. There have always been physical, very aggressive games. And so that throws in a whole new wrinkle of what to expect because, when you don't like each other, when you've got that extra fuel and you've got that physicality, anything can really happen.
And I'll just repeat that the top 6 teams in the standings are all, well, the top 5 are all positive goal differentials. Calgary is even at 6. And then everybody else in the league is a negative, except for Vancouver sitting in 10th. But in that 4-way tie for 8th, they're a +4. I know they've got a 1-game losing streak. I just feel like they've got more that we're going to see from them.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, it is beautiful.
It is interesting. You look at their wins and, 3 4-goal wins. So when they are winning, not close games. So that definitely helps them there. But yeah, I mean, Vancouver needs this win more than San Diego needs this win. And does that motivate them as well?
They're tied at 5 and 6.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, I guess you're talking about momentum and things, but yeah.
Yeah, momentum is mainly what I'm looking at.
Yeah. Okay, well, speaking of needing wins versus not needing wins, I would say Calgary needs this one as they hit into Buffalo. I think Calgary has a great chance to come in and really compete here. They've got that offense. They've got their defense is playing well. Nick Rose. This is one of the reasons they went and got him, right, is to play Buffalo twice down the stretch of the season. But as the graphic indicates, I just think it's going over towards Buffalo because I think Saskatchewan played really well against Buffalo. They were missing Robert Church, but played really well, and Buffalo still beat them. They can beat teams anyway. I'm going with the Bandits to not lose again this week.
Yeah, I'm going with Buffalo as well. I mean, this is Nick Rose's 3rd matchup against the Bandits this season, and then he'll face them a 4th time very, very soon as well. Is that the next week or the week after?
I think it's 2 weeks after.
Yeah. So, that helps Nick Rose out, I think, potentially, but could also maybe help the Bandits because they have his number and they've figured him out. So I'm gonna go the Bandits. I said in a tweet recently, I think that we're gonna look back at this Bandits team realistically and say they're one of the greatest NLL teams that we've ever seen when it's all said and done. But Calgary, can they get that first win with Nick Rose and make things work?
Yeah. Interesting because there's the saying, these are the good old days. These are the good days. It's something that apparently is shown to help you boost your happiness. Say, these are the good days. Just repeat it to yourself because you got to live in the moment and enjoy. But I think that makes sense. We may be looking back at this Buffalo team, but we just don't know. We might be looking back and saying that's one of the best teams ever. It feels like it, but I mean, they could lose 4 or 5 games down the stretch and flame out in the first round of the playoffs. Who knows? I don't think so. It seems unlikely. I don't even know what my point was there, but there was the one tweet that Graham Parrow put out. Somebody was asking, has anybody ever lost, any goalie ever lost 4 games to a team in one season? And Aaron Bold did when he was with, it was Edmonton before the Saskatchewan to Calgary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I will say what you were getting at was just that we really need to enjoy watching Buffalo for what it is while we have the chance to watch them, because we don't always, we look back at it, and as somebody who I only, do the video side of it, clipping highlights, you realize how special that defensive unit is. Like when they let somebody in, Matt Bin steps up once in a while, but that whole system and the way they play is really different. And the offense, who are you going to stop? I mean, you can't lock one of those guys out. They're all so talented. So I think that's what you were getting at.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, even the year that they didn't win the title in 2022 when they lost to Colorado, I mean, they were one of the best teams, arguably the best team in the league at that point as well. I mean, we haven't really seen a dominant stretch like this in NLL history. Even, I was looking back at the three-peat by the Rochester Nighthawks in the early 2010s, and yes, they ended up a couple times having very good playoff runs, but even had a I believe they were 7-9 one year.
Yep.
I think
And 8-8 the other.
Yeah. So, the consistent winning and success that this team has had in the post-COVID era in particular has been unbelievable.
Yeah, no, they've been terrific throughout, right?
Yeah.
So, and we go on to the next game, Albany and Philadelphia, and very different situations for some of these teams. I mean, Albany,
Yep.
3-9. They've had a tough year. Maybe we should have seen that coming a bit more, that they'd regress. You normally do when a team improves a huge amount in 1 year. They normally regress back towards the mean the next year, but I really thought they're going to be able to keep it rolling, but it hasn't gone great. Philadelphia, meanwhile, has lost 4 in a row. How's Philly going to do? They've got Desnew and Corbeil in.
Yeah.
I think that's going to help, but we saw Nick Rose in his first game with Calgary didn't get the win, even though he played pretty well. How quickly do they have the impact? Obviously, the Wings want it to work right away. I don't know. I feel like I'm being bullied into picking Albany here, but that's the way I'm leaning. It's hard to imagine that Philly team losing 5 in a row, but right now, I will go. I'll succumb. I'll go with the peer pressure and go to Albany.
I am going to go the opposite way with this one. I think that it's interesting that you brought up the Nick Rose situation, because Nick Rose, obviously the goaltender, comes in and that's important, but no changes defensively in front of him. Nick Demude, very capable, very talented goaltender, now has 2 veteran, very good pieces that can help. Oh, and we forgot about Shane Simpson as well.
Yeah.
Who can help move things forward. And, if you think about the prospect, not to hype Brennan up anymore, or we talked about Phil Caputo earlier, but, if you're talking about guys that can help Brennan and that offense get more opportunities and have Nick Demude feel more comfortable in between the pipes, I think that you've got all the pieces to make that happen. Also, a good home game. I'm going to expect a good crowd for this game. Especially Philly fans probably still riding that high of a Super Bowl championship. So give me the Philadelphia Wings on this one. I think that they've done a fantastic job ahead of this trade deadline, and I think that those moves are going to help them get into the postseason.
If I wasn't so jaded by my earlier flops, I might flop again, but I'm going to stick with Albany for this one. I think they're due, and Philly's due too. They're both due, so I'll just move on.
If everything goes according to plan, I am expecting to be at this game as well. How
have the Wings done when you're there?
What was that?
How have the Wings done when you're there? What's their record with
Levy
Nugget in attendance?
Overall, it's very bad. Actually, I think Mitch Jones had asked me that once, and the last time they lost, when Preston, Nikki, and I were there, I think they realistically are something like 2-9. When I'm in a team.
I feel so much better.
And I can say, Adam, every time he shows up to the Firewolves, it doesn't really go the way we want it to either. So maybe it's Adam. That's the problem with the Firewolves this season, is Adam. So
this season, but last season I brought all the good luck. We'll always cherry pick when we can. I can understand that.
I just felt a need for justification. We're going to our last game, and this is the other one, I think, for a game of the weekend, is Saskatchewan, Georgia, and you can go first.
Yeah,
that sounds so magnanimous, right? You can go first.
I have to say that I'm just going to be consistent here. We've been talking a lot about Georgia and how good they are. Brett Dobson playing some of the best he's played in the NLL right now. He's looking great. But I'm going to go Saskatchewan. I'm not going to get tempted by that moving, floating A there. And I'm going to say that Saskatchewan, they got a loss last weekend, but I think we pointed out enough that, had that been any other team other than Buffalo last weekend, Saskatchewan would have won. They've been playing like that all year. They've been so good, so consistent. I've been incredibly impressed with them. Give me Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan. Why? I don't know why. I'm just talk about a mispronunciation.
You're even wearing the green. Holy cow. It's interesting. I picked when when Toronto was playing Georgia, and they'd had that big game against San Diego and stuff, and they'd had their one big win. their comebacks, or whatever. And it's like, it's sometimes it's hard not to have a bit of a letdown after a big weekend. And I picked Georgia, and see a bit of the same here, but Saskatchewan losing that game to Buffalo, it can be, it was such a big hyped up game. You can have the same kind of hangover effect, but I mean, Georgia basically ended Toronto's season in many ways, right? When they won.
Yeah. I mean,
recently, so.
I think you can actually say that now, because that is what led to the fire sale.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
So, so I lean towards the Swarm. I think the Swarm are really good, but I've got to go Saskatchewan. They're playing so well, and I think they really want to come and bounce back after last week. And now the one thing, what I would like is to know if Robert Church is going to be back. If Robert Church is back, I'm definitely going to take Saskatchewan. If he's not, then maybe we revisit these and we can change them. What can we say that? Can we say when we check the injury report for the weekend, if Church is out, that we switch? No, we have to. I can see the no in your face.
Yeah, I think we got to stick with it.
Okay, fine. Rush.
With it. I've wrote about it in my 3 Up, 3 Down. It'd be great to get more injury information, and maybe one day we'll get more consistent updates from teams. But yeah, I also think that it just complicates things for picks, because sometimes it can be an hour, 2, 3 hours before the games that we find that out. And I will just say, just because we brought that up just as a quick little tangent, that I know that other leagues, they do their final injury reports at similar timelines, but they're, and so not necessarily that it is an NLL specific thing, but more consistent updates would be great.
So how many do we pick differently here? Not many, right?
No.
2 games?
Two, yeah.
So when Albany and Vancouver come through, I will extend my margin, because I'm only a game ahead of you at this point. So I need to get back. I don't know why anyone would have any confidence in my picks this week after I went 1-4, but I feel good.
I just want to throw in there, though. So you talk about the injury report. How about your preseason pick, though? Because the team that you picked, which most of us were in agreement was going to do way better than they are, ended up with a fire sale. So, yeah, I don't know if there is a good way to do it, because I've thought that several times on Friday as you're going through the transactions in the news, and all of a sudden you're like, I lost that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we had we didn't really know the extent and how the injuries were going to affect that Toronto Rock team. And it really, it's rough. And good on Jamie, too, that, I know that he is trying to pick up some pieces, but, I feel like definitely really betting on himself and saying these guys are going to be unrestricted free agents who can reject the franchise tag at the end of the year. How many of these guys can I get back? Or is he really just saying like it's time to change? It'll be interesting to see that. But I know that, Nick Rose has so much love for that team, as I'm sure a lot of those guys do.
And I mean, you're saying betting on himself as a GM and as an evaluator of talent, because they've got 3 first-round picks in this year's draft. They've got 1 next year. Interestingly enough, not their own. They've got Calgary's. But then they do have some others. They've still got their picks for 27. Haven't seen a lot of picks moving there, but Toronto does have 2 second-rounders in the 2026 draft. So that's a good point. He's betting on himself to be able to bring those guys back, but also get picks. Make good use of the picks that he's gotten for them. So it's a win-win in that case.
And I would also add, just as an owner as well, I mean, it's the experience, like, having a house for the guys to stay in, having the facility, like the track for guys to train in, get medical help and things like that. He's saying, look at the organization and the franchise that I built and what you can get with that. On top of, what it means to be near a major metropolis in Toronto. So,
and midweek practices are huge, that they can practice at the track. The guys are mostly near enough that they can get into practice. That makes a big difference. You'll hear coaches talk about that all the time. They wish they could have practice during the middle of the week. Yeah. One day when it's a full-time league.
Well, you are seeing a ton of guys, not a ton necessarily, but there's definitely a growing movement from players to be living in market. I know that the Desert Dogs have a handful of guys. Buffalo, obviously, one of the top teams that has so many guys living in market. You got something?
Sorry, yeah, it just made me think of, you said that, and Deacon Knott is living in market in Philadelphia, right? The backup goalie in Philadelphia. Yep. And we should throw in, maybe we can superimpose for the Knott live show. Deacon Knott going out, some of the guys going out with the Harlem Globetrotters when they were in Philly, and Deacon not making a shot with the basketball in his goalie stick from center, nothing but net, just made it look so easy. It was great. That was pretty fun to see Deacon not out there with them.
Yeah, he, Sam LeClaire, and Mitch Jones, I believe, all live together. Oh, and Brennan as well. But Brennan, I don't think is living there anymore. I think he's now.
Really, they kicked him out, eh?
Well, I
Voted out
think
of the
his
house.
plan was, unless things have changed, I know his plan was to either kind of be between New York and North Carolina, doing stuff with Duke, but that might have changed by now. But has definitely loved living in Philadelphia.
That's not very exciting. Let's say that there's a rift in the Philly Wings house. No, there wasn't. Okay, that's going to do it. That's the show for this week. And I think it was fun. It's great to have you back, Adam. And I know you weren't gone from the show, but you were gone. It was weird not talking to you all weekend.
Yeah, it was
like 3 or 4 days where we just didn't even talk. Well, okay, 2 days where we didn't talk.
Yeah, it was. It's good to be back and right in time. You know, these next 2 months, and then including the playoffs into May. Very excited. I always get excited because my birthday's in May as well, so I get excited about being another year older. And then watching some amazing NLL action. So I cannot wait for this March to May.
Yeah, I don't really get that excited about being another year older anymore. But
I always feel another year wiser, and I feel like this year there has been a lot of wisdom that has been imparted in me. So very, very happy about that.
Oh yeah,
excellent.
He totally did too.
Yeah, can't wait for next week. We're going to do draft coverage as far as how that's going and kind of go from there. And what else as far as doing all the picks and stuff has been great, but the NLL sixes, looking back at it now, how do you guys feel that? I thought that was a blast. I mean, Charity didn't even really understand it till this week when I explained, no, they're not playing box lacrosse. They're playing a different style, which is why Dobson. Yeah. So looking back at it from the beginning, not to keep this too much longer, but would you have changed the way you drafted?
First of all, I'd like to say it's funny seeing people commenting on the story and the video and that, and people are like, "Oh no, people are saying, oh, what's you like? Do you like box or field for this?" And I'm like, well, it's not really. Sixes isn't really box or field. It's a hybrid. It's more box than field. But people say, oh, I like box more. I like field more. Well, that's kind of irrelevant. But I think I personally anticipated more of a run on goalies myself, and so I took Brett Dobson first overall. I what I wish I'd done, honestly, is when the names were drawn and I came out with the first pick, I wish I'd said, because everyone was like, oh, come on, how do you get the first pick? Because my wife was drawing the names. But I wish I'd said, I am willing to listen to offers to change positions with someone in exchange for just flipping later in the draft. I want to, I'll take the third or fourth pick, because I feel like 3 and 4 were the sweet spots with the snaking draft. So I kind of wish I'd done that. If I'd stuck with the first pick, I don't know if I would have taken a goalie. I think maybe Brett Dobson's the MVP of our imaginary tournament, because he's like the guy, right? In field lacrosse, in those field lacrosse nets. But it's hard to look at it and not have Zach Currier, Jeff Teat, Dean Smith, or Josh Burke.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that is my, and I think Dan Arestia brought it up. It's like, look at the draft and look at where Jeff Teat and Dane Smith, or Jeff Teat, went in that draft. Yeah. Silly of I think the two of us to overlook Jeff, or at least I will say it was.
I didn't get a chance. After.
Okay. Yeah, for me, I wish that I had taken Jeff. That was a mistake. And so Jeff, if you're out there, you can join the team anytime.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having Jeff Teat on my team. I think my team would be the best defensive team. I think we'd be the ones keeping teams under 20. Yep. And I feel like maybe we'd score enough. I don't know. I think it'd just be fun to see that actually play out. And I reiterate my call, like, NLL, let's do this. Yep. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, 100%. So hopefully this moves the needle in the right direction, and enough of that positive talk from the Four Nations Cup as well. It just seems like a formula for success.
Maybe not 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of any of our games.
Well, I don't know. That would get a lot of clips.
Yeah, I don't hate the idea. I just think in sixes, I'm pretty sure you get kicked out of the tournament if you fight. So it would make for some pretty short rosters.
Yeah. So that's
Plus, we're not going to have the national thing going on, right? Because every team was going to have Canadians, Americans, Haudenosaunee.
right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe they start fighting each other.
Maybe. Hey, I've seen plenty of guys who are teammates in one league fight each other in another league.
Yeah. Well, that is going to do it for
Yeah.
this episode of Inside the World of Box Lacrosse. Adam Levy, Steven Stamp, Greg Beecher. We will see you guys next week for another awesome episode. This one that one's going to be trade deadline focused. So you want to stick to all NLL related stuff. Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern, as Stamper said, is the trade deadline. So you're not going to want to miss all the action going down this weekend and Monday. And we will talk to you next week.